If one watches the source from which the mantra sound is produced, the mind is absorbed in that. That is tapas. This response on the part of the young ascetic filled Ganapati Muni with joy, and he declared that Venkataraman should now be known as Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi.
Whoa.
Those who surrounded Ramana during his lifetime came from very diverse cultural and social backgrounds. What they had in common was a sincere aspiration to experience true inner peace and freedom. Ramana never saw anyone as separate from himself and had no disciples in the conventional sense. He told a visitor in 1936, "The person may call himself my disciple or devotee. I do not consider anyone to be my disciple."
He doesn't say you.
What?
He said the person may consider themselves my disciple. He didn't say you. I find that pretty interesting. Also, Ram Dass never in his lectures refers to the people listening as you or one of you. He won't say, one of you came up to me before the talk and said this. He'll say, one of us came up to me before the talk. I find that that's just a cool practice. Yeah.
If people call themselves my disciples, I do not approve or disapprove. In my view, all are alike. What can I say to them? He regularly said that the Guru was not the physical form, and guidance continues after the demise of the body. Therefore, there was no need to create a lineage or provide for transmission in order to carry on successorship.
Whoa. Wow.
Several well-known devotees expressed the different ways in which they experienced Maharshi's presence and teachings. The inquiry is not a mental investigation such as psychologists might indulge in. It is not a probing into the faculties, urges, memories, or tendencies of one's conscious or subconscious mind, but a quest of the pure I amness that lies behind all these.
How much of the deeper work that we perceive as deeper work, at least in America, is a probing?
Yeah, that just made me think of the entire spiritual market.
Yeah.
The e-commerce of spirituality.
Because unfortunately, it's
Here's your workbook.
Huge market.
And you can ask these things to bring yourself deeper.
Yeah.
And not that those things don't have any sort of value, but I think it's just such a different level of empowering when you have the teaching as simple as this, but that is clearly like investigating the ego. You could come up with a million questions to ask, or you could literally just ask, who am I? And that is going to cut to the chase of all of those other questions that you asked.
You know, it just came to me.
What?
The method. The feeling I get from what Ramana might give you, like the method of asking, who am I? It's as simple as the feeling when you realize it.
Oh.
You know those moments, I'm sure that you've experienced even brief moments like this, where you are in it all of a sudden, and you are there, and you have nowhere to go, and you are so joyous, and you are like free flowing. You're like water. And for me, at least, the overwhelming feeling is how simple it was, and I make it so complex all the time. And the teaching, maybe the teaching should feel as simple as the feeling. And I feel like that is something that he capitalized on and capitalizes on more than any other teacher that I've come across.
It's the same as home cooked food. It's the same as nature. It's the same as like yeah, as
Where are you going with this? Home cooked food
yeah,
and nature.
just take those two.
Okay.
Is the incredible simplicity that is in it that somehow makes it so much more profound than the most advanced thing you could come up with.
Oh.
You know, like
Yeah.
you could have the coolest car in the world and you put that next to a flower
Yeah.
and you would be like, well, this car is clearly the thing. Like, but the flower is so much more profound
And complex.
and complex, but it's with such a simple casing, you know? And it feels like that's what a lot of these things are.
Simple casing.
Is
That's
like
good.
you have this, you know, or like the best tools in your life are just a very simple tool, like a literal physical tool. Like if you can have something that just gets the job done, and that's all it is, it's like that is so much better than you having this like multi-tool that has all these different things, but it is, you know, it's just like hard to finagle, get the right thing. It's like, no, give me the tool that cuts straight to it, and it feels like that is where this stuff is grounded.
Yes. Very nice.
To meet the needs of various seekers, Ramana did expound various doctrines. But we have heard him say that his true teaching, firmly based on his own experience, is ajata, that which was never born.
Whoa. His teaching on his true experience is that which was never born. Does that mean like what he is that was never born?
Yeah. No, it's the, like, I mean, I feel like my intellectual understanding is that his realization of the self is the realization of timelessness.
The thing that was never born.
The thing that was never born.
That's nuts.
So he just, like, exists in that place where anyone could go to. Oh my gosh. I ran around the room, but I didn't pause it when this happened. But when he said, someone may view themselves as my disciple, I neither agree nor disagree with that. There's something in there that I don't really want to like put words to at this point, but there's something in there that is so crucial. Like, it is immensely crucial. The neither agreeing nor disagreeing, the allowing of contradictions or seemingly contradictory things to exist within you at the same time. It's so incredible, that feeling. It's so profound. Because then you can allowing your life to be lived that way. There's nowhere to stand. And you live that. You live nowhere to stand. Because you are not here nor there. You're not rooted in a fighting stance. It's like you're fluid. That's all it is you're fluid. Yeah.
The most touching sight is the number of tiny children, up to about 7 years of age, who climb the mountain all on their own to come and sit near Maharshi, even though he may not speak a word or hardly look at them for days together. They do not play, but just sit quietly there.
What?
In perfect contentment. You are the self, Ramana.
That
What?
parenting 101 right there.
Wow. That people also say that he had a certain presence around animals as well. It's as if the hardest people to break to crack the nut of were adult humans. Everything else was so receptive
It's
to him.
already there.
It's already there, and the curiosity, the openness is already there.
Yeah, it's that doubt.
To the doubt, yeah.
And like, it's interesting because the doubt, it's so big within, especially, I mean, me especially, just like I must question authority. I must question XYZ. I guess authority is a big one for me right now. And what you were just saying about becoming more fluid is like, I'm realizing one of the huge things that I get very egoic about is that questioning of authority and trying to loosen my grip even on things like that, where it's like such a defining characteristic of myself is like, I'm always going to do, what I think is right.
Yeah.
And realizing the faultiness in the things that I think are right.
Yeah, nice.
It's
yeah.
like,
or the potential faultiness. It's like you go for something, you do something that other people aren't about and they don't like what you're doing, and they may question you about why you're doing it. Say entering the spiritual path. It could be anything in your life. And by path, you always know I mean pathless path, but I'm just not going to say the full thing. Or maybe sometimes it will. And if you can root yourself not in a stance, in I'm here because my life is getting better and why don't you join me? That type of thing. If you can root yourself in, I'm just following my feeling. This is what feels right now.
why are you doing it? I don't know.
Yeah, or I don't know. Maybe tomorrow I'll stop doing it.
That's the craziest one, is can you be okay with just like the inconsistencies
Yes.
in you?
Yes.
And the freedom that brings, but also
so much freedom.
Because so much of this also came up for me, that when you see someone who's very free, it can be the most intimidating thing, especially if it's someone who's like close to you who normally doesn't act freely. Then it's like you see them acting freely, and all of a sudden their personality might have changed from this morning. And you're like confused because it's no longer Mitch. It's no longer what I thought. It's no longer the ego.
Right, and it's like dangerous.
How
feeling.
dare you not be the ego anymore?
Yes.
How dare you?
Yeah. So you're
confuse me like that.
You're gonna get that from people because
you're gonna get that from yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's scary to be free. It's scary for me to think about accepting authority in a way that's more like free flowing, even if it could be the greatest thing for me at that time. But I'm sure everyone has their individual stuff. Sorry if I cut you off there.
No, that's all right. Just that there's going to be a ton of external pressure when you gain a bit of freedom, because people want you to be consistent. It's like your closest friends probably know you or think they know you because they think they know consistencies about you. And that's how I used to derive a lot of my connection, is based on, can I find your essence as you as an individual human and hone in on that and love that and hold you to that? Can I hold you to that? If you stray from that, I'll know when to tell you that you're straying away from that.
Oh,
And so there have been people who
shit.
have approached me and say things very similar to that. Like, I know you. What are you doing right now? What's like? What are all these changes about? Like, are you influenced by someone? Are you
doing drugs?
Are you doing drugs, son? Like, all those things. Like, is this just the new you now? It's like
Immediately
Right.
trying to make the next definition.
making the next step. It's just like, yeah, maybe right now, but maybe tomorrow I'll be like that person you were looking for in the past. Maybe I'll be back to that. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like,
wow.
so that will be an external pressure, and so if you can not let that fall in on you, that's the key, like you were just talking about. Yeah. Thank you, Ramana.
Tells us nothing but the self. Anything else is just imagination. So be the self, here and now. There is no need to run off to a forest or shut oneself in a room. Carry on with your essential activities, but free yourself from association with the doer of them. Self is the witness.
That's like good definition of karma yoga, is just, you don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to go do something to get anywhere. You can keep moving about your daily life and make the internal changes. And if the external daily life changes as well as a product of that, fine, let it, allow it. But the daily life does not need to change for the internals to change.
Yes.
Nothing has to change. Ram Dass says you can play your role perfectly and have all the innards be different.
The doer can still do.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Sure.
Fuck it. Who cares?
Why not, doer?
Let's do
it. Do it up.
A bit of silence.
You are that. Bhagavan has written a song whose import is that the path is very easy if the mind is not allowed to stray after the senses and directed to inquire into its true nature. Certainly, the heart will be reached and the self perceived. The teaching of Bhagavan has acquired worldwide recognition and attracted earnest seekers from all 5 continents, as much for its simplicity as for its sturdy rationality, which appeal both to the head and the heart. It can, however, be summed up in the ancient dictum, know thyself, or seek the seeker.
Seek the seeker. That's a funny one.
Wow. Interesting.
That's like a snake chasing its tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like seeking the seeker can be like this. You know, like chase. But like when you, it's almost like that the seeker becomes the only thing at some point.
That's where all the focus is.
Or the seek becomes the only thing.
Oh, nice.
And then it's like you found it. But you didn't even find it. You just stripped away some stuff.
Yeah, you stripped away some stuff. I think that's a great... Yeah.
When Ramana spoke, the words seemed to come out of an abyss. One could see immaculate purity and non-attachment in him and his movements. In his vicinity, the mind's distractions were overpowered by an austere and potent calmness, and the unique bliss of peace was directly experienced. Again and again he gave us the teaching that the real Maharshi was not the body which people saw. It was the inner being. Though
Birds chirping, cameras moving, people moving around him. Ramana. Is this video paused?
Yeah.
Like if you just look at him, is this video paused? He's like,
Did you click play yet?
move!
those who never made the journey to India during his lifetime may take comfort in this thought.
He still just hasn't moved.
It's
Everyone's
also
like shaking hands around him.
it's also Yogananda to his right.
Yeah,
just so you
it's,
know.
yeah.
It's just incredible.
What a squad.
That it is possible to invoke his presence wherever they are.
Paul
and to
Brunton.
feel its reality in the heart.
Heard that name.
Ramana wrote very little and taught mainly through the tremendous power of silence. The writings of Ramana were created mostly to meet the specific needs of others and fall into two general categories. The first is where perfect knowledge is combined with the ecstasy of devotion. Tears of joy streamed down his face as he wrote them. These devotional poems mirror the aspect of longing and the bliss of fulfillment.
He has poetry.
That's what it sounded like.
Oh my gosh. I have to read this. Oh my gosh. I thought he just had a little booklet.
Yeah.
Like, who
the
am I? Yeah.
I want to read that too.
Woo! Yeah, me as well.
The other writings enunciate his teachings in both poetry and prose. These include clear expositions of the nature of God, the mind, the world, and the individual. Just as Ramana realized the self without previous spiritual or philosophical instruction, he attached little importance to theoretical study. Therefore, his writings focus on the practical approach of turning toward the source of self-knowledge, rather than getting lost in the never-ending cycle of intellectual discovery. Ramana indicated that the heart was another name for God or the self. It is called heart since it is the source from which the universe rises. He stated, the heart is not physical. In Sanskrit, heart is hridaya, which means that which is the center. It is that from which thoughts arise, on which they subsist, and where they are resolved. The heart is the center of it all. It is said to be the infinite. In the book, Ramana Arunachala, Arthur Osborne writes, "It was the most majestic film I've ever seen, the most awe-inspiring, and yet without incident. A view of the Arunachala hill from the ashram drive, and then a tall, frail, light-complexioned man with short white hair descending the slope of the hill with the aid of a staff. Then he was seen coming out of the ashram hall, stopping to smile to a baby, walking across the ashram ground. Just simple, everyday actions. The simplicity was so natural, so spontaneous." After years of living in caves upon the Arunachala hill, the Maharshi moved down to its base, near the resting place of his mother. After a short time, a small
It's funny how it just a picture of like Ramana Maharshi reading mail. It's like it's such an interesting thing. It's like I think it is important to connect the beings that you might view as teachers to the very simple actions that you also do. It doesn't need to be something totally different. It could be you're in that state, you're reading the mail, you're going to the bathroom, you're talking with someone else, you're sitting with someone else, you're making food. It's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Walking down a hill.
Yeah, I liked how the like commentator
Yeah.
was like, it was the most simple thing I'd ever seen, but and you can feel that it's like someone who knows nothing about Ramana or has no feelings of like openness towards Ramana and their teachings could see that clip and just be like, it's an old guy with a cane walking down a hill. Like,
Yeah.
sure, it's like a cool hill.
It's a receptivity.
It looks like a cool group, but it's like that openness. Exactly.
drama began to take shape around him, and what is now the current Sri Ramanashramam had its modest beginning. Seekers from all backgrounds and religions came to be in his presence. Ramana sat in a modest hall, available day and night to answer questions from sincere seekers.
Wow.
His only possessions were a loincloth and a towel. He never
Wow.
asked anything from anyone.
Oh my goodness.
Until the frailty of age set in, there were no set hours for approaching him. During the final year of his life, devotees were requested to let him rest at midday. In response to this request by ashram authorities, Ramana himself sat outside the hall until the rule was retracted.
What?
His humanity and sense of equality was truly universal. In 1949, it was detected that the Maharshi had malignant sarcoma in his left arm. In spite of intense medical care, on April 14, 1950, his physical end was apparent. The last photo of Ramana was by the French photographer Henri Cartier-Bresson, taken just 10 days before the Maharshi left the body. In the evening, as devotees sat on the terrace outside the room built specially for his convenience during this last illness, they spontaneously began to sing the refrain to one of his stirring hymns to Arunachala. Arthur Osborne writes about that evening. On hearing it, Ramana's eyes opened and shone. He gave a brief smile of indescribable tenderness. From the outer corner of his eyes, tears of bliss rolled down. One more deep breath, and no more.
Oh my goodness.
At that very moment, 8:47 p.m., an enormous star trailed slowly across the sky, passing to the northeast of the peak of Arunachala. The meteor was noted as far away as Bombay.
More and more of these videos have just been leaving us quiet.
Feels ingenuine to say much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'd have to take myself out of the natural state that I'm in to say something.